Okay, welcome to the House Medium. I'm Adele Levine, your House Medium. And this has been interesting because this is the first time I'm filming me doing the part of the email. So this is going to be the first episode where the full episode will be on my YouTube. I'm moving my headset because I've learned that I've been screaming because I've had the headset covering both my ears, and I realize I need to kind of sort of cover my ear so I can hear myself. Brilliant. Brilliant, Adela. You just figured that out. Okay, so I'm really excited about this episode. This is very unique because the person I'm having on, her name is Pilar. I hope I said it right. I just met her. I did a private medium gallery. Hold on. And since we're being transparent about all things, I'm going to put my lipstick on in front of you. There you go. Much better. Um, I met her I did a private medium gallery for a mutual friend named Susie. And I just loved her energy. I loved who I kind of saw who she was, inside. And she started to tell me a really cool story. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on, pause, don't tell this story here. Please come on my podcast. And she agreed to come on my podcast. So I'm really excited to say she will. She is here. So before we get to her email, I'm also wanted to give a shout out, and I think I might have forgot her name, but I know she's on a trip to Sweden. I did a reading for her, and her and her sister listened to my podcast, and I so appreciate how they let me know that they love all the different things that I do, and they like going into the Medium Brew Cafe. So this is for you, and I hope you're having a great time in Sweden. So we're going into the Medium Brew Cafe. We have a couple of things to discuss. Before I do my usual announcements, I have really interesting thing that transpired. First of all, um, there is something called Coffee Once. I have to get my hands on it. I'm not sure how to because I'm not sure if they even sell it in the States, but I'm going to be checking it out. And what it is comes in this little pen, and you click it. And when you click it, it pushes cold brew coffee out of it. Now, I have mixed feelings about this. Here's why I have mixed feelings. Is because when I ran the coffee shop in Ohio that I helped create and open called Java U, and I didn't create the coffee shop, but I helped bring it from Montreal to the States. So if anyone who's listening and is familiar with it, back in the 90s, was it the 90s or the early 2000s? Sorry. We started to do a cold brew. I introduced cold brew to the stores I was opening up in Ohio. And I kept telling the coffee company I was getting the cold brew from, and they taught me how to do it, that we should bottle it. And they were like, no, I don't know. What? Really? Yeah. So what ended up happening is history. As we all know, cold brew is the thing. And everybody now does cold brew. And I'm telling you, I literally knew about this. I'm looking for a certain sound effect. Hold on, I don't want to say which one it is yet, but you'll see. And anyway, so I literally was so on the money. I can't even tell you how spot on I was about how cold brew is. I'm going to admit to you, I'm looking for my wand drop, which I don't think I have. This isn't it. No, that's not my wand drop. And I was like so shocked when I started seeing cold brew go out everywhere. Now it's in a pen. What? Where's my wand drop? Where is it? I was trying to be coy. I'm not being coy anymore. Now I'm pissed because because I deserve it. I deserve this wand drop on. And by the way, you're going to see, let me see. Is this it? No. You're going to see that I deserve this wand drop a few times, and if you're hearing me do this wand drop, which I don't think you guys can hear, I apologize for um uh doing wand sounds in your ear over and over, but apparently it's nowhere to be found. Really? I'm so irritated now. Anyway, now they have these pens that they're doing it in. Isn't that like cool? I think it's really cool. And never mind. I can't find the wand drop right now. I think it's really cool. I'm really excited about it. And I want to try it. Okay, so that's one important announcement. The other thing is just kind of a little bit of housekeeping. And the housekeeping is I had the psychic development workshop. Now, I didn't know if people know that the workshop you have to come in person. Somebody kind of I think didn't have the link, someone else was late, so I there was only a few of you that signed up, so I decided to postpone the workshop to another date. And I'm putting that out. I'll send that date out first to the people who were supposed to come so I can make sure you guys can make that date. And then if they're cool with it, then I'm going to send it out to, I'm just going to kind of let other people sign up. But this is a workshop you have to show up on Zoom because we're practicing on each other. That's all we're doing. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Let's just hear what Zoltar, and this time I'll hold the speaker up. What do you have to say about that, Zoltar? What do you have to say?
Hear your fortune from Zoltar. Sometimes you can tell a wise person not only by what he says, but also by what he doesn't say.
What?
Remember, it is much better to say little than to say too much and regret it later.
So hopefully you guys all heard this. Basically, Zoltar told us all to shut up. Rude. Thank you, Zoltar. Rude. Just rude. Timu Zoltar. Let's see what Timu Zoltar, because this is what I call Timu Zoltar, because look at it. It's not.
He who laughs last thinks slowest. Stay alert, my friend, and laugh heartily and quickly.
Wow. That's why he's Timu. Anyway, you're supposed to shut up and laugh. Just so you know. That's what he's saying. But I just want to say I'm going to do one last attempt for my wand drop because I'm like, I feel like I deserve a wand drop. Because, wait, is this it? I don't know. I don't think so. But because I'm telling you, I feel like I predicted that these cold brews were going to be popular. And people were telling me at the time, like, you know, when you're like onto something and you're going, well, at least for me, I'm like, I know this is going to be big. I don't know what you guys are talking about. This is going to be huge, blah, blah, blah. And people are kind of like, oh, does anyone really care and everything? And now they're in pens. Just saying, I told you cold brew was going to be big to the people who didn't listen to me. And now here we are. How do you feel about yourselves? I don't feel great, but let's move on. Okay, so we're going to go out of the Medium Brew Cafe, say goodbye to the peoples, and we're going to go into our. Where's my music? Oh, did I put my music over here? Okay. Let's go into our email. Oh, is there anything else I need to announce that I missed? I talked about the workshop. Oh, yeah, real quick. If you want to get the classes that help you kind of practice your gifts and your abilities, and you want to kind of um, get things, videos that you can watch at your leisure, then go ahead and tier up on my Patreon, which is Sacred Scholar, and you only pay $5 more, and you get all the videos I post every month plus all my other stuff, 35% off all of my readings, plus my daily energy climates, plus everything else that I do. And if you want to support this podcast, please do this. Oh, wait, no, we have to go back in. Sorry, I tricked everyone. Don't be mad at me. Don't be mad. Not that I think you guys would really be mad at me, but I wanted to read a review. Where is it? Hold on. I have to grab it. Let me grab. Can I grab it? I can grab it. Oh, I might like move the camera a little bit. Ah, you're seeing all my secrets. No, I'm just kidding. There's no secrets. Okay, let's see. I wanted to read a review and thank people. Sorry that I tricked people who thought we were leaving the Root Cafe. We are not. We're not. We're going to another review. And this one's from Blue Sky. Adela, you're a marvel. Thank you. These readings go in totally unexpected directions. They're fascinating and thoroughly entertaining. 5-star. Thank you so much. And that's to motivate you to leave a review. Did it work? Okay, great. I hope it did. Let's get to for real this time. We're going to get to it. Here we go. You ready? This is a good one. So if you are listening to this at night, good. If you're listening to this in the dark, wonderful. If you're alone, fantastic. But I will tell you, it might be a little difficult. But it starts out lovely. It was great meeting you last night at Susie's house, and I look forward to spending more time with you, whether at readings or doing some one-on-one work. Pilar, because we'll talk about why she says this. My story from last night, my nephew-in-law was from Kentucky and was always intrigued by paranormal and loved reading about it and visiting places, and he knew that I had, quote, gifts. That's what I was going to say. We're going to work on with her. He came to visit my sons and I when we were living outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, and nearby Spencer Mountain was a house that was known to have sightings and activity. No one had ever actually lived in the far mansion, but it was rumored to have been built on near a cemetery. It was built for a grandson that had gone off to war, but he never returned. And its height, Spencer Mountain, had 30 people. Wow. Must have been crowded. 30 people. I just can't even imagine living in a place with 30 people. I mean, I don't even go to a store in LA where there's 30 people. I don't even go to maybe a gas station. That's crazy. People living there when we went there in 2006. There were 18 people today in 2024. Now there are 2 people. 2. So people are leaving. One afternoon coming back from Gastonia, I took the back roads home so I could get my stuff ready. Took it back home so I could take James by the house. I pulled into the driveway, which is on the left side of the house and had a chain to block going to the house, and parked. Okay. James wanted to go to explore. I found that I didn't feel comfortable getting out of the car and told him so. So I remained in the car. He walked around the house, and when he got back, said that he wanted to come back that night after dark. Oh, James was being brave. James was feeling himself. James was like, yeah, I want to experience some paranormal activity. Okay, James. As we sat there talking, what I didn't tell him was, he wanted to come back that night after dark. As we sat there talking, what I didn't tell him was that I couldn't get the car to start. After about 5 minutes, it finally started and I was able to drive away. So she's sitting there trying to start it and it's not starting. Box check for one of the very common and very telltale things of paranormal activity. Later that night, as we were about to leave, my nephew talked to my oldest son and his girlfriend into going with us. My son, aged 19 at the time, was not a believer. He had always shrugged off my quote intuitions, so this was a way for him to mock James and scare him. This time I decided that I would park across the street instead of the driveway to avoid any possible reoccurrence of the earlier issue, which I still had not shared with anyone. So nobody knew about this, just her and the spirits that were helping her out. James got out of the car excited for his adventure. I explained to him again that I didn't feel it was a good idea. So he gets out of the car and he doesn't feel, and she's like starting to get a little bit apprehensive about the whole thing, which is, kind of normal. It's almost like, getting cold feet and kind of having a knowing about something. Okay. I didn't feel it was a good idea for him to go with him. Unlike earlier, this time I had a strong, pressing feeling that I should just stay in the car. My son, I could see, was feeling less bold than he had at home. And when he realized that I wasn't going to be walking the property with James, he decided that he would stay with me in the car. Okay, so he's like, door's locked. I'm not going anywhere. He's like, oh, mom's not going? Hey, I thought you weren't a believer. I thought you didn't believe in this sort of thing. What's the problem? What's wrong? That's what I always say to people. I'm like, oh, I thought you wanted to see stuff. I thought you wanted to see. I thought you didn't believe in these things. Interesting. Okay. So he decided that he would stay with me in the car. His girlfriend from a very small town in North Carolina was relieved that she wasn't going to stay in the car alone, as she didn't want to go in the first place. So she's the only one I feel like props to her, because she's like, I admit it. I don't want to do it. Nope, not for me. And that's totally fine. But for someone to say, oh, I don't believe in this is all, and then go get scared, interesting. James crossed the street, and I locked the doors. This time I did not turn off the car. We watched James walk up the hill yard and around the back of the house from the right side. After about 10 minutes, we saw James standing at the top of the driveway. My son asked me why James was just standing there staring at us. Then all of a sudden, he came running down at full speed down the driveway, and I barely got the doors unlocked until he jumped into the car. All right. And was screaming for me to drive away quickly.
No.
He was hyperventilating and truly shook up. A few miles up the road, when he seemed to have calmed down some, I pulled over to talk to him. So he saw something, I think, needless to say. So a few miles up the road and calmed down, so I pulled over so we could talk to him. My son was tapping me on the shoulder and kept saying, Mom, Mom, Mom. When I looked at him, the color was gone from his face, and he asked me who was with James. James stared at us. I knew exactly where my son was headed with his question. James was wearing a dark blue t-shirt, and who we saw at the top of the driveway was wearing a white light outfit. James was not who we saw on the driveway, as he was trapped in the backyard. James told us that someone named Loretta or Laureen was talking to him and told him that he was sick and needed to leave. He said that he couldn't get away from her at first, and when he finally broke free from her was when he ran down to the car. James found out a few months later that he needed a liver transplant due to a blood transfusion earlier in life. He died 2 years later from the complications from hepatitis C. To this day, My son refuses to talk about that night. If when I bring up the far mansion, he gets physically shaken and pale and then says that he doesn't like to think about that night because he doesn't like the fact that something he never believed in, he now had to admit that he had seen. These are the pictures taken from the now torn down home. And you can see them on my Instagram because it's the poster that is of this podcast episode. And I posted them. However, let's hear what I had to say to Pilar because this was not only interesting, but has an interesting ending, a sad ending as well, but interesting. Well, let's hear what I had to say to her. Hi, everybody. All right. Oh, I didn't do my magic. What? I forgot to do my magic wand. So so you heard me read Pilar's email and I'm going to get you kind of probably already heard me tell the story of how I met her, but I'll just refresh your memory. I just met her. I just met her at a medium gallery event that I did, a private little event for a friend, a mutual friend named, her name is Susie. You've heard me probably talk about it. I always want Susie to come on here, but she's not, she does not like, she doesn't want any press attention. So she's like a no on that. But I met Pilar at this meeting gallery and we're talking and she's saying all this cool stuff. And she started to get in this really cool story. And I'm like, as a content and creator of such, I was like, no, 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 I can tell this is going to be good. Save it for my podcast. So welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I pretty much like poached her last night and then was like, I was like, do you want to do this tomorrow? Because you guys have been really shy about sending in your stories. And if you have sent the stories, I do an episode called Reader's Room where people send in, but they don't appear. So I just read them. And some people just get kind of too nervous to come on. So they send those in. But let's go over. I was telling her that she was worried about like her whole background. For those of you who are listening, she has all kinds of fun stuff behind her. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. This is like social media. This is YouTube. This is like podcasts. People like knowing a little bit about your personality. So behind her, she has all this cool like sewing stuff. So can you tell people real quick before we get into your email what you do?
So, on my crafty side, I am addicted to sewing and anything that has to do with it, whether it's sewing quilts to sewing clothing. So it's yeah,
Wow.
I have my sewing center. I have my quilt wall behind me as I'm doing blocks. I can put them up there in piece how I want the quilt to lay out. And the best part is that like during work meetings, because this is also my office, if
Yeah.
I'm not a part of that meeting, I can turn off my camera and I can sew while I listen. So I incorporate my everything into my life.
So sewing is your life,
I love it. Yes. I mean,
but
it's addictive.
it's not what you do
No,
professionally?
no,
Really?
it's not. Not
How
at all.
crazy. It seems like we need to work on that. If everyone knows how I think, I'm like, we got to find a way to get her doing that professionally.
I'm trying to work towards something along those lines.
Yeah, I can see that. First of all, second of all, I think that's kind of amazing. I can't sew anything to save my life, but it's mostly cuz I think you have to have a certain like the way you see things, you have to be able to like look at it and kind of know. I'm the person that's like, I think I'm going to cut these sleeves off cuz it's going to look cooler and then the like I just don't have that kind of eye.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I definitely have big hole gaps and I just get impatient. So I just cut it.
Yeah.
And most people have your kind of eye. They know like the curvature and they know the size. And I'm just like, I see other people, they make it look so easy. And mine, I literally have a shirt right now. I thought it would look cool. And I just like, never mind. I'll just throw it away because I already botched it. So I think it's like a certain way of like space and like a
Yeah.
visual space of space and time, like space, spatial visual.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
sewing was one of those things that I always admired in my mother because she was just fabulous. I wish I could be as good as she was. And, it's just one of those things she made me learn in high school back when they had home ec, and then she taught me all the cool tips and tricks.
But you liked it because it
I
doesn't
love it.
even matter
Mm-mm.
if you're not someone who's drawn to that, people could teach you something all day long and you just sort of like, okay, it doesn't fit. Yeah, so that's neat. So you make stuff from scratch even?
Yes,
Like in your do you get a vision or do you use patterns or both?
both, both.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. I admire people who can do that. I
Uh,
will buy it from you.
there you
So
go.
I'm a good
Awesome.
customer. But I am not I have no I don't have that thing in me, that crafty thing. Okay, so we're gonna get to this other side of you. And one of the things that we talked about last night is that she has a little witchy side, and there's a little bit of her I feel may need to come out of the broom closet. But we'll get into that as we get into this email. So let's break it down. Okay. This is like an awesome email. So first of all, we already covered it. She starts it off like, "This is cool. We met at Susie's." And the first part of her story is your nephew-in-law, and was always intrigued by your paranormal and the love of reading and visiting places. So
Hmm.
he knew you had the gift. Okay.
Yes.
So now he came to visit in Charlotte, North Carolina, and no one had ever actually lived in the Parr Mansion. Is how do you pronounce that?
So it's the Far Mansion.
Okay, so I thought Far
Yeah.
Mansion. Okay, so what kind of mansion is that?
So the the Farr family owned a large textile manufacturing company outside of Charlotte in Gaston County, and they used to produce yarns and threads and those types of textiles.
Hmm,
And
it's interesting.
yes, and and it was right at what was called Spencer Mountain, and Spencer Mountain was a very, very small town, like to the point to where there was truly, I think, at its height, only about 38 or 40 people there.
What?
Yeah, it was just crazy small.
I
And
mean, is that considered a town?
believe it or not, it is still called a town. And today I looked it up this morning as I was writing my email to you. There are only two people left in this town, and
Whoa.
every 4 years they actually send out ballots to these two people to try to fill seats on the city council, and neither of them vote because obviously if one of them voted they would end up in office. so there's
Yeah.
been no one in office since like 2010 or 2011. It's a crazy, crazy little thing. You drive through it before you've realized you've gone through it. There's one stop sign. Um, but the Farr family had bought this land from the Spencers back in the 1700s. And the grandmother or the matriarch, her favorite grandson, and this is the folklore of it. The favorite grandson was going off to war, which we know in the late 1700s was the Revolutionary War. But
Hmm.
she wanted him to have a place to come home to. So she had this mansion, and mansions just is a very nice word for it. Today it would be our average, probably 2,500 square foot home. It wasn't like
Right, right.
massive. But she had this house built so that he had some place to come home to, and unfortunately he was killed during the war and never came home to it. So she would not allow anyone to live in the house.
Mm,
Time goes on, century passes, and somewhere in the early 1900s, the Farr family donated the property to the county.
oh, okay.
So it was
Is
never
it
going
a
to be.
museum?
Well, no. And the reason it could never be a museum was because of paranormal things going on.
Oh,
Yes.
well, damn,
So
I did not expect that. Okay, cool. Okay, wait, don't tell me anymore. I was like, I was like, should I stop her so I can see this? But I had a feeling, so that's why I'm gonna stop you now. I was like, I don't know. I have a feeling there's a lot more going on in that house besides the mom and the child.
yes.
I have a feeling. So I'm gonna stop you right here. And then I love it. I knew this was gonna be awesome when she started telling me last night, and I was right. Maybe I'm a little psychic. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so
Maybe a little.
maybe a little bit. So okay, so we get to there. So we got the history. This side note, I have a kiddo who's always like saying he's going to live in a place there'll be like 30 people, and I'm always like,
I've
that
got the
just be
town for him.
yeah. I'm like, no, no, just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so one afternoon, you're coming back from Gastonia, and I took the back roads home, and you pulled in the driveway, which was the left side of the house, and had a chain. Okay, so just this part, because we're going to break it down.
Hmm.
So just this part, like the pulling around, just kind of, um, it was like back that night after dark, and after you sat there talking, what I didn't tell him. Okay, so just that little part right there, can you kind of go over with us?
So the reason I pointed out that we pulled in the driveways on the left side of the house is because that night when he went up, he rounded from the right side. So
Mm-hmm.
I was parked during the day, I parked there, I parked in the driveway and I was
Okay.
facing the house. But at night when I went back, I I felt the need to park across the street on what used to be a parking lot for the old factory.
Okay.
But I was still parked at the end of the driveway, but across the street and sideways. So I was no longer facing the house, I was facing the road, but the house was to my left.
Okay. So that was like all on purpose.
Yes.
Okay. And so then you're back, and you wanted to come back to that night after dark as you sat there talking. Okay, so what was happening when you're saying you sat there talking and you didn't tell him, like that whole thing?
So earlier in the day, when we had gone there and when we drove by there, he was getting all excited when I actually told him why we were taking the back roads. And I pulled into the driveway and I looked at him and I'm like, you go ahead and go. And he was like, no, you need to come with me. And I'm like, no, I think I need to stay here in the car because I just had that innate feeling that I should not get out of the car. So I let him go. I had actually turned off the car because we were just sitting. And when he did his walk around the house and he came back within probably 5 minutes, it was not very long, and he got in the car and he was talking and he was excited and he could feel energy, and he just felt like he really wanted to come back at night. the whole
Okay.
the whole time he's
See,
talking.
this is just pausing you, but this is what I try to tell people. They're always like, I want to see stuff. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
But the whole time he's talking to me, I'm like turning the ignition and the car won't start.
Okay.
It got to the point where I was starting to think I had flooded the gas
Wow.
because it
Okay.
just would not start. And then finally, when I agreed to bring him back that night,
Hmm.
I turned the ignition one more time and the car started. I quickly backed out of the driveway and drove home. But during this time, I had not let him know that I was having trouble starting the car because he was enough on edge with the electric excitement he was feeling
Right. Right.
that
Right.
I thought that it would probably kind of freak him out because he was always excited talking to me about things and seeing things, but he had never truly experienced anything.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, I get people all the time who are like, oh, I would just love to see something. And then stuff happens, and then they're crying or running or
Yes.
or they're going to be like, I didn't know this was going to be so real, and they start freaking out. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay, so this time I decided that I would park across the street. Um, okay, so later that night, that's why I skipped it. Later that night, as we were about to leave, my nephew talked to the oldest son into
Yes.
going with us. Okay, so can you explain what happened there at that
So
point?
so my oldest son is a complete skeptic. He refused. He's like, it's just garbage. He's like, none
Right.
of this is true. And it would be like I would have intuition and he would blow me off, that kind of thing. He thought I was
Hmm.
crazy. And so my nephew was like, no, you have to come. And he was so my son was like, okay, fine, thinking it would be a great joke, and he would be able to like laugh in his face and just mock him, and yeah, just so it was like, fine, we'll go. And
Right.
his girlfriend was also there, who comes from a completely different small town in North Carolina. So she was a little apprehensive, but she went ahead and came anyway. So yeah, so it was probably like 10 o'clock at night,
Okay.
and we drove back over to the house.
Okay. So James got out of the car. Can you remind us James is
My nephew.
your nephew? Okay. Got out of the car and he was excited for his adventure. Oh, James.
He was
Oh,
so
James.
excited. He was like, "You didn't pull in the driveway." And I went, "No, I didn't." I said, I'm parked over across the street. We're fine. I don't need to be in the driveway." And again, at this point, he had no idea my reasoning for not wanting to be on the property. I wanted
Yeah.
just I knew I needed to stay off the property for some reason.
Right. Because probably, well, I'm going to get into it. I'll
Yeah.
get into that. Okay.
So James gets out of the car, and
Hmm.
he's just all excited and hopping around, and I'm still sitting there, and he's like, "Aren't you coming?" And I went, "No, I can't come."
You're
And
like, I'm good.
yeah, I could actually feel, not like physically pressing on me, but emotionally pressing on me that I did not need again to go on the property. So except for being on the driveway that day, the
Hmm.
entire 4 years that I lived near that house, drove by that house, it was the one and only time I was ever on the property, was earlier that day.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm sitting in the car, and I went, "No, I need to stay here." And he turns around and looks at my son and his girlfriend. And he's like, "Let's go." And I look at my son. He's got this weird look on his face. And he looks at me. He's like, "Aren't you going?" And I went, "No, I can't go." And he's like, "Well, I'm not going either." And I could tell that all of a sudden his second guessing, and he was feeling uncomfortable.
Mocking. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
It
That's
all
pretty common too. People who will say they don't believe in stuff, but they also will get afraid. So
Yes.
it makes no sense.
Yes.
If
So
you don't
yes,
believe in it, then what are you afraid about?
exactly. So here's this big bad guy going, "No, I'm not going to go." And I realized at the same time his girlfriend was I could feel her like releasing tension behind
Mhm.
me, because she realized she was not going to be stuck in the car by herself, because she did not want to go to begin with.
Right, right, right. She's
So
like, "Thank God."
yeah, so James just kind of laughed at us, and he was like, "Fine, I'll be back." And he closes the door, and as soon as he closed the door, I immediately locked the doors.
Mhm.
Which afterwards, in my mind, I was like, that's so ridiculous, because if somebody wants to get in a car, they're going to get in a car. But I felt that need to lock the car. So I locked the car, and I did not turn the car off this time,
Okay.
because I did not want to have a repeat of what had happened, 6 hours earlier.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we had the radio on low. We were just kind of chitter chatting. My son was just kind of laughing, again, trying to blow off whatever his uneasiness was. The girlfriend didn't say a word the entire time. But so now, again, I'm parked across the street, sideways to the house, and James walks up. So the house is kind of on a hill. And when they say mountain, it's not like mountains like we have here in
Right,
California. It's
right.
more a hill.
Like a hill.
It's
Yeah.
a hill. So I see him. He walks up to the right as we're facing the house, around the right side of the house. And we see him disappear into the darkness because there's a lot of woods behind him.
Okay.
So
Wow.
so I look at the clock, checking the time, just because, again, it was just this feeling I had. And we're just sitting there, and again, we're talking, and we realize after about 10 minutes, wow, he's really been gone a long time. And I know I'm not getting out of the car to go find him. And I'm convinced that my son is not going to go anywhere without me, even if
Yeah.
his, 19 or 20-year-old self.
Mhm.
There was no going.
Right.
And, but all of a sudden, my son goes, "Oh, there he is!" And we look up, and we can see at the top of the driveway a person standing there. And we're like, "Okay, so he's about to come down." We're figuring he's just going to walk down, but he just stayed there. He didn't move in any way, shape, or form. Just stood there staring at us.
Mhm.
And my son's like, "What is his problem? Why isn't he coming?" And I'm like, "He'll be here in a minute. Just let it go. He'll be here in a minute." And as we're sitting there, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the person at the top of the driveway is gone. And we see James running. I mean, like he's running a 100-meter dash. I've never seen him run that fast. He was running down the street. He did not check to see if there was oncoming traffic, which in this small town there's no lights on the road anyway. So, but
Right.
he came flying around the front of the car. I barely got the car door unlocked before he was, pulling at the door to get in. He
Okay.
jumps in, and all he does is start screaming at me, going, "Go, go, go, go! You've got to go! Get away from here! Go!"
Uh-huh.
So I hit the gas, and we take off. And again, looking back at it, me being parked across the street sideways gave me that option that I didn't have to back out. I didn't have to do any
Right.
turnarounds.
And you could kind of view everything.
Yes, yes.
Interesting enough. Yeah.
So I just took off. And we drove for a few miles because I'm realizing beside me he is completely hyperventilating. He's not able to
Mm.
catch his breath. He's just so pale, ghostly white, I guess. He's just so
Yeah.
pale. And we get to the end of that road, and there's like this, again, it's probably like 5 miles down. We get to the end, and there's like this little parking lot. So I pull over because I'm realizing he's starting to breathe again, breathe
Okay.
normal. And I was like, "Okay, I need to talk to him because he's not said anything to me except, 'We've got to get out of here. Go, go, go.'"
Right.
So as we pull over, my son in the back seat, he starts tapping me on the shoulder. He's like, "Mom, mom, mom." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Mom, mom." And I look at James. My son is staring at James. And we both realize at that exact moment, well, he obviously before me, but all of a sudden we both look at each other and went, "This is the wrong t-shirt." James
Mhm.
was wearing a very dark navy blue t-shirt, and what we saw at the top of the driveway was a white
Right.
shirt. And
Okay,
it's
so I have a couple of questions just so that before we get to the next part, because this is an awesome story. Um, two things. When you were seeing the person standing at the top, you said they were really still and staring at you. What did it look did they look solid or did they look kind of like blurry?
um it was definitely solid, but there was a haziness to it. I couldn't see facial features because,
That
quite
okay,
honestly,
that's yeah,
I think
that's what I wanted to know.
I was too far away. I think I
Yeah.
was too far away to see facial features.
But they were just consistently just standing there. Okay.
Yes.
And then the other question is, uh, when he ran down, did the image disappear before or after he ran down? or at the same time?
I'm wanting to say probably at the same time, because we had been looking at this image going, why isn't James coming down? Why is he just standing there? And then all of a sudden we saw an actual physical being running toward us. So I that distracted me from what was at the top of the
Okay.
driveway.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's what I wanted to know. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get to so okay. All of a sudden he came running down a few okay. So your son tapped you and your son okay, we get to that. So let's get to what James told you happened because James just decided that he was going to go all on his own
Yes.
and have an adventure. Poor James.
Yes, yes, curiosity killed the cat, right? um, so when we pulled over and we stopped, and I'm like talking to him, I'm like, what's you've got to talk to me. I said, what's wrong? And again, my son in the back seat is completely flipped out. The girlfriend, I believe, was getting ready to pass out. And James looked at me and he goes, I spoke to somebody. He goes, he's like, I was talking to somebody. He goes, I don't know. I can't remember if her name was Loretta or if it was Lorene. He goes, but he's like, she was holding me and she kept, and I was like, holding you. And he's like, not physically, but like, I couldn't get away from her.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, all she kept telling me was I needed to leave. I had to leave. I wasn't well. I was sick. I needed to leave the house.
Wow.
And he goes, I kept trying to leave and she wouldn't leave. He goes, she wouldn't let me go. And he goes, and I finally like found a way of breaking whatever the grasp was. And I think it's that paralysis that you and I had
Yeah.
talked about.
Right, right.
And
But he was awake,
he was
right?
awake. Yeah,
And
he
he's
was
like
actually awake.
standing upright and
Yes.
everything.
And
Okay.
he's seeing somebody and
Like
he's
and
talking to them.
right. And did you get the impression he felt they were like a physical person?
Oh, yeah, well, he no, he didn't feel they were physical. He felt it was spiritual.
Okay, cuz so they weren't solid
No,
either. Okay. So
no.
but he's seeing an apparition.
Yes.
Wow, this is like
Yes.
crazy. Yeah,
Like, yeah,
okay.
like feet apart,
Wow.
feet
Yeah.
apart. And
Wow.
all he kept saying was she was yelling at me and telling me I needed to leave. I needed to leave. I had to get away from the house.
Okay.
And he goes, all of a sudden, he goes, once I could run, he goes, I just came running. And my son goes, did you see anybody standing at the top of the driveway? And James is like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Because all of this happened with James
Right.
behind the house where we couldn't see him.
Right, right, right. Okay.
So there was something watching us
And
while,
something dealing with him.
yes.
Okay. So let's get to what happened when what James found out a few months later.
So James went back home to Kentucky and was not feeling well and went to the doctor. And what he found out was that um, due to an injury he had had with as a child with a blood transfusion, that his liver was shutting down and that he needed a
Okay.
liver transplant.
Wow.
And so they went as he had to go through all the tests, put him on a national donor list and everything. But that is what this this spirit or apparition or whatever you want to call it was could feel that he was ill.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I'm going to
yeah.
get to that. I'm going to get to that. Okay. All right. So, lastly, the last thing I want to bring up. So, to this day, your son refuses to talk about that
Yeah,
night,
yeah,
right?
like gets completely shook.
He just
I
is like,
Yeah, like we were laughing with a completely different girlfriend. This was just a few years ago,
Okay.
And I walked in and I was like, "Oh, did you tell him about what happened over at the Far Mansion?" And he truly he started waving his hand, turning his head for me, and he's like, "We're not talking about this. We're not. No, we are not going to talk about this. No, shut up. No." And I'm like, "Boy, that's really rude to say to your mother." He's like, "Shut up." He's like, "No, we're not having this discussion." And the girlfriend was like, "What's going on?" I said, "Oh, I've got to tell you this story." And he looked at me and he says, "I'm leaving now." He goes,
Do you think it
I
was
can't."
because he's afraid of what happened, or now he's afraid he has to admit something real happened, or
I
both?
um he had to admit he had to acknowledge to himself that there is something,
Okay.
and that I know shook him to his core.
Okay. So now we're going to get into the part of me, because this is, so everybody listening, this is her first time. She hasn't even heard one of my episodes, so I'm just throwing her in. So that's why I have to explain everything to her as we go, but she'll check it out after here and she'll get an idea of why I'm doing what I'm doing. All right, so this is where we play a little music and I'm going to tell you what I see, okay? So first of all, I don't have to, like, usually there's like things I have to break down, but you did, like, in the sense of there's different parts, but this is all one story. So when you were sitting though outside of the house and the engine didn't start, that's 100% one of their favorite spirits favorite thing to do is to mess with electronics, and not, and your car not starting and all that is very classic of the spirit world. So I feel like something didn't want you to go. That's my sense. It wasn't trying to, like, scare you or hurt you or create a havoc, but it was almost like, I know you could see things, so stay and, like, let's have a little tea and chat, or whatever. Let's just chat for a while, or come on in, like, come on in, because I've done house cleansings and other
Yep.
things where I'll see spirits that are like, come in, because they're very excited someone can see them.
Right.
So I feel like something didn't want you to go. Some people didn't want you to go. So that's what happened with that. Your intuition, of course, was spot on to make sure that you put yourself in a place where you felt like you could watch the house and be safe. My other feeling is that when I drop into that house, it's riddled with, like, people. There are a lot of people, and some of them not so nice and some of them just kind of normal, like, but the feeling I get when I see the people, the weird thing is, and this is the weird vision I get, is that some people just didn't like that family. That's like, it's almost like, um maybe they didn't treat some people right back in the day, so there's a lot of people like that, because I don't know, I just kept getting this vision of people that worked for them or something, or worked on that land, didn't like them. But there are also just people who are family, so as well. So it's kind of a mixture. And
Hmm.
I don't know if you know anything about, like, if you would be able to know anything about that land. I mean, about the kind of people that work there, but I kind of feel like I keep getting a kind of distinct vision of, like, an older man for sure. And he looks like he kind of worked the grounds type of
Hmm.
thing. And he definitely looks like, um, kind of like resentful to the family. That's the best way I could describe it. Almost like there was high, like, statuses, and he was kind of low on the status. So I feel like the reason why there's so much paranormal activity is because it's a group of people
Yes.
in there. Um, the woman that was warning him definitely feels like the vision I got, even when I read it, so she kind of had dark hair. I don't know if he described her.
Yes.
And
Dark hair. Yes.
yeah,
Dark hair.
and I see her. She's very lovely. She's almost like the daughter of that old man. I feel like they were the
Mm.
hands people. Like, she's the daughter of the man who, like, worked on the land. Like, they were the workers.
Hmm.
And she was an apparition for sure. And she absolutely was like, hey, because this is what happens a lot. Spirits are like, I can help you. Like, you're sick. I'm going to
Yeah.
save your life, right? If I
Right.
could save your life. And then people freak out because they do this is for everybody at home. They go, oh, I want to see these things. And
Mm-mm.
then they go seek it
Yeah.
out. And the spirit world's like, oh, you want to see us? Not only do you want to see me, but I can actually help you with something's wrong with you. And then he flips out and gets scared of her. And she's like, I was helping him.
Yeah.
The man that's standing there, he was watching you guys to make you feel that was James so that you wouldn't question anymore what was going on.
Got it.
So it wasn't sinister, but it is creepy and isn't fun for you guys because you just have this spirit standing at you. But when I tuned into him, it wasn't sinister. It was very like, I'm gonna guard. I'll guard. I'll stand here, and they'll think it's him, and then you'll have some time to tell him real quick what's wrong with him.
Got it.
All of these two people were trying to help him, and the man I feel like is the father that I keep seeing of the woman.
Okay.
Like, yeah, and so I feel like this was all like not sinister at all, but it's just creepy when it happens.
Hmm.
And so I feel like they felt it was going to be a good connection because of you. Because when you have like a Wi-Fi, um, that's kind of like really high and you're connected to things,
Right.
then when you have a Wi-Fi and you're connected to things, then that gets attracted to you.
Got it.
So they get attracted. So they're kind of like, oh, she can hear us, she can see us, so we can help this young man.
Hmm.
And maybe it will be more successful because she's more tuned in. So
Got
my feeling is that you were tuning in the to like what to do. Like they were kind
right.
of almost telling you like, oh, park here. It wasn't all an accident.
Almost like I
And
was a conduit for him.
yes, yeah, you were being a communicator, and
Yeah.
with not realizing, not consciously doing it. And
Right.
this was all a plan. Like they see in that realm there's no time. So they already knew you guys were coming. They already knew he was sick, and they were like, we got one shot to tell him.
Yeah. Right.
This is it. Like, we're going to make the other ones freak out because we can tell they're not going to want to come. This guy seems really gung ho
Yeah.
and he needs our help. So we'll help him. We'll tell him. And my sense is they would have, even if your son went,
Oh
even if
wow.
you went, they would have
Right.
still tried to tell him. But it was just made easier this
One on
way.
one. Right.
Yeah. So my feeling is that these were the good ones. It's not to say that there aren't ones that kind of cause havoc, because I
There
get
are.
kind of that sinking feeling in my stomach.
There actually are
But
there. Yes.
it's really because they don't like the people connected who own the land.
Hmm.
They feel like they weren't good to the people in the area. They weren't good. um it's not the hands people, it's the money people.
So, to give you a little bit, if you'd like, a little bit of information that I found out since this morning
Okay.
about the property, is I reached out to one of my old neighbors who grew up in the area because
Okay.
we were not from that area. And yes, you're very right. It turns out that the Farr family had been slave owners
Yes.
to the point to where they actually even had homes built in the Carolinas by the same, I mean, South Carolina areas. So they were slave owners. There were either the house was built on or near a cemetery that may have also been Native Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And
Double whammy. Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
as far as the spirits that are in the house, yes, there are many.
Mm-hmm.
When the land was donated to the Ranlo Gastonia area, the firefighters were the ones that basically took possession to guard the house. They made sure that people stayed out of it and so forth. But what they did do was they turned this into a haunted house every Halloween.
Ugh, God.
Because, yeah, right, because of the folklore that went with it. And there's a story, and again, my friend knew this firefighter, where they had gone into the house to set up for a Halloween, and he went running out of the house, refused to go back into the house because he was getting scratched. Like,
Yeah.
he had physical scratch marks on him.
Mm-hmm.
And there were stories of, yeah, just horrible, horrible, mean people in there. So yes, to your point, there were very nice people and there were mean people. She was surprised when I mentioned the name Loretta or Lorene because it was one name she had never heard before. The one name
Mm-hmm.
she had always that seems to be always tied to the house is Sarah, and that was a granddaughter of somebody that worked the land.
That's yeah, that's her. I think you have to give James a break because when you're trying to hear from that realm, I'm a medium and you could always get the sounds wrong.
Yeah,
He could hear Loretta, Sarah, Loretta. It sounds
right.
similar.
Yes.
So my sense it was her. 100%. I would bet money in Vegas it was her. And I have another sound effect I'll use later called a wand drop, and you all know I'll be using it's like mic drop. Uh, but I'm telling you, so what happens is when people who like it's Native American and they're slaves on the land, they're not like, oh, we want to get you back, we want to hurt you. They're like, you didn't really respect the people who lived here,
Yeah.
you didn't respect us, you didn't care that we died, and so now you're sitting here trying to do a haunted house and we're pissed.
Yeah.
So that's what happens is they kind of come off like they're not happy with the way they were treated. So
Hmm.
they kind of make it known, and the reason why they helped him is because he was being so nice. I mean, because you were being so nice and respectful, and they could see you could see things, and he was coming from a good place. So they were trying to help him. But they don't like, let me tell
Yeah.
you something, everyone. When you want to go to Halloween and all this shit, they hate when you take places that people have died at and have had trauma at, and you turn it into, quote, fun. It's kind of like dancing on people's graves and they will mess with you for that.
Yeah.
So I feel like, there's some people got caught got caught in the crossfire is what, happening to this firemen and stuff like this, they get it taken out on them.
Hmm.
But yes, this makes total sense. And this was like a really amazing story. And yeah, were you going to say something else?
As you say, it turns out that right before the pandemic, the house was in such disrepair, and so many people were breaking into it and just kind of trying to use it as a party house and aggravating things.
Yeah.
That the house has since been torn down.
So it's
So
just the land.
yeah, so the house really stood for probably 250 years.
Wow.
And now it's just land, and this entire area, as I said, there's only two people left. There's only three homes left out of what it was in the late 1700s and in the 1800s. As someone dies or as someone moves away, they're actually tearing down the homes and blocking
Oh,
everything off. So this is actually about to become a little ghost town, for lack of it, no pun
right.
intended.
Yeah, but
But
kind of
they're clearing,
intended.
right, they're clearing the land. They
Okay.
are. So the people that are now part of that area and taking care of things are understanding that they need to give back, and they're clearing it.
Nice. Oh, okay, that's a happy ending.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, that makes sense. And the thing is that if they got rid of the house and That's kind of like, all people kind of want is to kind of, get their respect that they felt like they deserved. And that, that's just, oh, that's what I wanted to say to people, because it was something I was like, what I wanted to let everybody know that if you look at the poster that I posted on my Instagram, that is the picture of the house. That's the house. And I'll also post like it next to it. If you slide over, you'll see when this comes out. But yeah, I knew this was going to be a really, really awesome one and magical. And it has all of the things. It checks all the boxes. I would say this is what I would call high paranormal. And
Yeah.
I have my own rating system, and I would rate this like a 15. Actually, I would rate it a 20, because that's my own rating system. Because
Right.
apparitions are very hard
Yes.
alone. You saw two of them, and one of them talked to him.
Hmm.
Rare, rare. So James needs to know he had a rare. That's not something they normally do because it's so hard for them to do it. So James had a rare experience. So I think it was amazing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome.
This was awesome. And we're gonna talk. I'm gonna talk to her about getting her out of the broom closet, and she'll join. She'll join us over
Yes.
here in Weirdo Land. It's
Yes.
fun over here.
Yes.
Thanks.
Start opening my mind again.
Start opening up. Start opening up. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Of course. Well, interesting. I did find what I was looking for. Wand drop. Wand drop. In case you couldn't hear that, not to brag, but wait. I need the actual wand drop. I call this a wand drop because the things that I said that I saw, I do feel that the Loretta and the Sarah can sound the same. You got to understand when you're talking across the realms, excuse me if you get the name a little mixed up, especially it's someone who's freaking out, panicking, going, what the hell is happening to me? And I find it very interesting because I kind of didn't talk about this with her, that he passed away 2 years later. So I feel like what was happening is they were like, hey, listen, we're trying to give you some time in your life. We're trying to show you that we can help you and help, you know, add some time in this realm and get you the help you need. But in a weird way, it must have been really scary for him, because I bet he had a weird sensation that he'd be in that realm soon, not necessarily at that house with them, meaning not like being a part of it, but who knows, he could be a part of the crew that tries to help people. People are not attached to the home. Like I told her, they're attached to the land, because people feel like, especially Native Americans, and when it's like slaves were on the land, those people who died, they want people to know, hey, listen, we died here and it wasn't in vain. We want people to respect the fact that we suffered here when we lived here and then we died here. And doing haunted houses in places like this, you guys, it's not cool. It just isn't. I would say to you, don't support haunted houses that are doing this in places where people died in a horrible way. I understand doing it in like cool, unique, kind of vintage, Victorian homes and things like this. I understand. But if you're going to go to a haunted house, make sure that it's not mocking the land. If people died from cruelty and abuse and things like this, and there's now a haunted house there, telling you, it's not good. I wouldn't do it. So I feel like they were really trying to help him, and maybe he does try to help people in his own way as well. I do feel that everything I told her, she kind of checked out. I do feel it was the man who worked on the land and the daughter. I feel like they tend to do that. And this is why it's important to know that sometimes the people that we're scared of, they are trying to help you, even though it's scary to you and you're kind of freaked out. They literally, like, hey, I'm just trying to get you through some rough times that I can see coming, or we're just trying to make contact. However, I also kind of did the wand drop for the things that I told her, and also a back, wand drop for the cold brew. But I hope she comes out of the broom closet. She's really awesome and interesting. Thank you, Pilar, for just being such a good sport and coming on my podcast at the last minute when I was like, can you do it today? Because I couldn't do it the next day. And she did. And I so appreciate it. That's to say, you all need to be sending in your emails to the house medium at Gmail. Okay, just saying. All right, let me take a sip of water. Not an interesting cup. Maybe now that I'm filming this, I will. But it's to remind everybody, you know, allow yourself to follow your intuition. When she was giving into her gifts and she was giving into her sixth sense, she knew what to do in that situation. So just sometimes if she had just left, if she had said, I'm not going to go to the back to this place, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do it, something was drawing James there. He felt like it wasn't just that he wanted to see something cool, but I feel like something drew him there. They were drawing him. They were like, come here, we want to tell you something, we want to help you. And he ended up alone there, and they were able to help him. I find that just absolutely amazing. That is how the other realm works, everyone. That's why if you get over the fear part, you will see the magic in it. Follow yourself, follow no one. Also, you can, give me a like and a follow on Instagram, The House Medium, and follow Adele Levine. And if you want to adhere to my service, if you want to hire me for my services, adelelevine.com. And I do private events and things like this. But anyway, follow yourself, follow no one, listen to your inner voice, and I'll see you soon.